A trench line outside of Bakhmut, Ukraine, 2023. A soldier crouches below the parapet, takes off his helmet, and sets it on the end of a stick. Beside him, another man puts his eye to a small periscope. The helmet rises above the sandbags, slowly, unevenly, the way a tired man's head rises when he thinks no one is watching. A shot cracks across no man's land. The helmet spins away, and the man at the periscope, who never blinked, marks a small puff of smoke in a distant tree line and reaches for a radio. Now hold that 10-second scene, because it is not modern. The same scene was photographed in Mosul in 2017, performed by Iraqi police under ISIS fire. It was performed in the rubble of Stalingrad in 1942. It was performed in the hedgerows of Normandy in 1944, thousands of times by American GIs. And it was invented as a formal military method in the mud of the Western Front more than a century ago, by one of the strangest officers the British Army ever commissioned. One trick, 100 years. It has survived the machine gun, the tank, the jet, the drone, and every sniper school on Earth. And here is the question this whole story turns on. The German army knew this trick. Their own manuals warned about it. Their snipers could recite the countermeasures from memory. They were, man for man, the best trained marksmen in the world. And in the summer of 1944, they fell for it anyway, again and again at industrial scale, until the most feared specialists in Normandy were being destroyed by a piece of pressed steel from a factory in Detroit, lifted on a stick by exhausted privates. To understand why, you need to understand one sentence, and I want you to keep it with you until the end. A bullet travels in a straight line, and a straight line points both ways. The story begins with a man who should not have existed outside an adventure novel, mostly because he wrote adventure novels. Major Hesketh Pritchard was an explorer who had hunted through Patagonia and the far north, a big game hunter of international reputation, a first-class cricketer famous for his fast bowling, an author, a journalist, and at nearly 6.5 feet, one of the tallest officers in the British Army, which made him comically unsuited to trench warfare, where the tall die first. In 1915, he arrived on a Western front that had a quiet, unglamorous crisis. Germany had entered the war with thousands of telescopic-sighted hunting rifles gathered from its sporting gentry and converted to military use, and with men trained to use them. All along the British line, soldiers who raised their heads for 2 seconds died. Officers died. Sentries died. The toll looked small in the statistics of a war that killed 20,000 men in a morning, but Hesketh Pritchard did the arithmetic that mattered. A single skilled German sniper, he reckoned, might account for 30 or 40 men. Multiply that by hundreds of snipers, month after month, and the German program was hollowing out the British infantry one head at a time. And worse, it was teaching every British soldier to live crouched, blind, and afraid. The generals had no answer. The big game hunter did. In 1916, he founded the first Army School of Sniping, Observation, and Scouting, and among the methods he taught there was one so simple it barely deserved the word invention: a dummy head, sculpted in papier-mâché, painted by artists, mounted on a stick. Raised slowly above the parapet, it imitated a careless man taking a look. Somewhere across no man's land, a German sniper, trained to punish exactly that carelessness, fired. And here is where the genius lived. The bullet passed clean through the hollow head, leaving 2 holes, one in, one out. A British observer then ran a sight line through those two holes, a straight line drawn backward across no man's land, and where that line met the German parapet, there, within a yard or two, lay a man who believed he was invisible. His own marksmanship was the map to his position. The better his shot, the cleaner the holes, the more precisely he had signed his location. The counter-snipers went to work on the far end of that line, and the German sniping plague on the British front was broken. Hesketh Pritchard was decorated for it, with a citation crediting him with enormous casualties inflicted on the enemy, almost none of them by his own trigger. He had discovered something deeper than a gadget. He had discovered that a rifle shot is a confession, and that you can make a disciplined man confess by showing him exactly what his discipline is looking for. He wrote it all down in 1920 in a book called Sniping in France. The Germans read it. Remember that. They read the book. Now meet the men the trick would one day be used against, because they were not fools, and this story is worthless if you think they were. By 1943, the German army had codified 2 decades of sniping experience into formal doctrine, pressed into its men through dedicated sniper schools. The teaching was a religion of patience. Study the ground for hours before choosing a hide. Range every landmark in advance, the fence post, the broken tree, the ruined gable, so that when a target appears, you already know the distance. Dig below ground level. Never occupy a position you cannot leave invisibly. Never fire twice from the same place, and above all, wait. A sniper who fired at everything he saw was a dead man within a week. A sniper who let 5 easy targets pass to take the 6th important one, the officer, the radio man, the observer, was worth a platoon. Germany even bureaucratized the craft. From August 1944, a sniper's badge came in 3 grades: 20 witnessed kills for 3rd class, 40 for 2nd, 60 with its gold cord, every kill requiring written confirmation from a witness. The system produced monsters of patience, like Matthaus Hetzenauer, the young Tyrolean credited with 345 confirmed kills on the Eastern Front, a man whose longest confirmed shot was reported at 1,100 meters. And the system knew about decoys. This is the crucial point. Dummy heads appear in German training literature as a known enemy trick. The prescribed defense was more of the same medicine. Verify. Do not fire on doubtful targets. Wait until the target is unmistakable. Watch that sentence closely, because there is a trap door built into it. The instruction assumes a fake target looks doubtful. But what happens when the fake is built to pass verification? Then every hour of the sniper's training, all that patience, all that discipline, all that insistence on certainty is no longer a defense, it is a targeting system pointed at himself. The harder he verifies, the more confidently he fires at the thing designed to survive his verification. The German answer to the decoy was to be more German about it. And that is precisely what the trap ate. The trick crossed the world before it reached Normandy. In the autumn of 1942, in the shattered city of Stalingrad, the Soviet sniper Vasily Zaitsev, a hunter's grandson from the Urals, recorded in his memoir the duel that Hollywood would later make famous. Strip the cinema off it, and the mechanical core is pure Hesketh Pritchard. Zaitsev and his spotter, Kulikov, hunting a German sniper who had wounded 2 of their comrades, baited him with a raised helmet. The German fired, and then made the one error his trade forbids. He lifted his head to admire his work. Zaitsev put a bullet through it. Historians still argue over the details of that famous duel, and honesty requires saying the story rests on Zaitsev's own telling. But the method needs no debate, because it was in the books on both sides by then. The question was never which army knew the trick. Everyone knew the trick. The question was which army would industrialize it. The answer arrived in Normandy in June 1944. wearing a round steel helmet. The Bogage country was the best sniper terrain of the entire war. Thousands of small fields walled by earthen banks, sunken lanes like shooting galleries, sight lines short and fatal. Into it the Germans fed their patient men, and the first weeks were a massacre of the careless. An American platoon leader's account, preserved in the Army's wartime combat lessons files, describes ordering a squad across a gap between hedgerows. One shot, one man down. The squad went flat and froze, and the same rifle, from the same hide, worked down the row of pinned men one round at a time. That was the German system functioning exactly as designed. And then, without any manual, without a single order from above, the American infantry reached for the oldest page in the counter-sniper book and improved it in one crucial way. They did not need papier-mâché artists. They were already wearing the decoy. Look at the M1 helmet the way a German sniper saw it. Its silhouette was unmistakable at a glance through a 4-power scope. Round, deep, flared over the ears, unlike anything else in Europe. For a sniper trained in target identification, it was a gift, instant recognition of an American. The Americans understood the gift cut both ways. A helmet pressed from manganese steel in Detroit hung on the muzzle of a Garand or the end of a stick, raised over a hedge slowly, unevenly, over 5 or 6 seconds, the exact tempo of a tired man risking a look, then held, then eased back down. Done badly, it looked like a helmet on a stick. Done well, it passed every test the German verification doctrine could apply. Right shape, right color, right speed, right hesitation. The sniper's own rulebook pronounced it confirmed. And while the helmet performed at one point along the hedge, the real work happened 50 feet away, where a man lay invisible with a trench periscope, descendant of the 1916 instrument, watching the far tree line with both eyes safe below the bank. The German fired. In the periscope, 3 tiny events: a flicker of muzzle flash, a puff of smoke, a shiver of disturbed leaves. In 1916, the next step had been a sight line and a counter-sniper stalk that took hours. In 1944, the next step was a map grid and a radio call, and within 2 minutes, sometimes within 90 seconds, 60mm mortar rounds from the company's own tubes began landing on a patch of hedgerow the sniper had spent 6 hours choosing. He was not in a duel. That is the revolution hiding inside the story. He had trained his whole short life to win a contest of marksmanship, and the Americans simply declined to enter it. No American ever showed himself. No American even needed to see him. His own bullet, his own flash, his own perfect discipline had been converted by a piece of personal equipment into a fire mission. Now put yourself behind the German scope, honestly, because this is the question of the whole video. The helmet rises above the hedge, slow, weary, textbook. Your doctrine says confirmed target. Your instinct says something is wrong. But your instinct said that yesterday too, and yesterday it was a real man, and you let him live. You have maybe 4 seconds. Fire or wait? And if you wait, what exactly is your tell? Put your answer in the comments and be specific, because 60 years of sniper schools since have struggled to write a better rule than the ones that failed here. The technique had been road-tested in Italy, in the mountain villages beyond Salerno, where every shutter might hide a scoped Mauser, and where American squads learned to raise a helmet on a rifle butt over a windowsill before any man showed his face. But Normandy made it universal, and it spread the way real soldier knowledge spreads, not downward from manuals, because the U.S. Army, by its own admission, never even built a proper central sniper school in the Second World War, but sideways, sergeant to private, foxhole to foxhole, like the rule about never lighting 3 cigarettes on one match. By late summer, it had leaked out of the infantry entirely. A Canadian veteran named Parsons, a truck driver hauling ammunition, described in his recorded oral history being stopped by a sniper in a tree and what the men around him did about it. A hat, a rope over a branch, the hat hauled slowly upward like a man climbing, and, in his words, 10 chances to 1 the German would fire at it. Truck drivers were running Hesketh Pritchard's play from memory without ever having heard his name. A wartime press photograph, still preserved in the archives, shows the whole doctrine in one frame, a helmet raised on a rifle above a low wall in France, and beneath it the soldier holding it, crouched safe, looking sideways into the camera with the tired half-smile of a man who has done this many times and intends to grow old. It did not make anyone immortal, and the honest ledger has to say so. At Brest that September, where an American corps spent 6 weeks digging a fanatical garrison out of a fortified city, the helmet went up on bayonets through broken windows on every street, sorting the empty buildings from the deadly ones. And it was at Brest that the trick's limits were written in the story of one man. On September 13, 1944, Staff Sergeant Sherwood Hallman of the 175th Infantry, a 30-year-old from Spring City, Pennsylvania, broke a 3-day deadlock by vaulting a hedgerow alone into a sunken road held by a machine gun and some 30 riflemen. He shot and grenaded his way into the middle of them, and when his carbine ran empty, he pointed the empty weapon and ordered them to surrender anyway. 12 hands went up on the spot, the position collapsed, the battalion advanced 2,000 yards, and Fort Carenrue fell that same day. It was one of the great bluffs of the campaign, a Medal of Honor bluff, and the citation confirming it exists. The following day, a German sniper, a man from the Patient School, shot Sherwood Hallman dead in the streets of Brest. The Medal of Honor was presented the next spring to his wife and his 2-year-old son. The soldier who won everything by deception, killed within 24 hours by the enemy's own masters of it. That is the war this video lives in. The trick saved men by the 100. It could not save every man. Nothing ever has. So stand back and ask the question the German side never stopped asking. How did the best trained snipers in the world keep dying to a trick their own manuals described? They were not outshot. American sniping in that war was, by every honest assessment, an afterthought. No central school, an adequate rifle, nothing to compare with the German system, its schools, its badges, its Hetzenauers. The German sniper was outthought, and not even by a rival genius, which is what makes it hurt. He was beaten by a closed system meeting an open one. His institution had written the perfect doctrine and then required him to live inside it. And doctrine, once written, can be read by the enemy and reverse-engineered into bait. The American infantryman had almost no doctrine on this subject at all. He had 10 weeks of basics, a helmet, and permission, the most underrated weapon of the 20th century, to try whatever worked and teach it to the next man. When the war ended, the German sniper schools dissolved. The helmet trick did not. It marched straight into the post-war American field manuals as a standard technique, and from there into every army that copied them, and it has never once retired. Mosul, 2017, a helmet rising on a stick over a berm. Bakhmut, 2023, the scene this story opened with, the periscope man waiting beside the decoy exactly where Hesketh Pritchard would have put him. A century of military revolutions, radar, jets, satellites, drones that can read a wristwatch from the stratosphere, and infantrymen are still killing snipers with a helmet and a stick. Because the trick was never really about helmets. It is about the one vulnerability that training cannot remove. The moment a hidden man decides that what he sees matches what he was taught to look for and squeezes the trigger and tells the world where he is. His bullet flies true, and a bullet travels in a straight line. And a straight line, as a very tall Englishman worked out in the mud 100 years ago, points both ways. Before you go, if this story left you with questions, how the periscope teams actually triangulated, what became of Hesketh Pritchard, how modern armies teach decoy discipline today, ask them in the comments. I read every one, and the best questions become the next videos. And if you have not seen our video on how American squads made themselves vanish from German scopes in these same hedgerows, watch it next. The two stories are halves of one war. If anyone in your family served in Normandy or anywhere in that war, tell me their story below, the name, the unit, whatever survived in family memory, because this channel exists to keep exactly those things. And if one helmet on one stick beating the finest marksman in Europe earned it, subscribe. The war is full of small ideas that broke big systems, and we take one apart every week. The next is already on the bench.